Okay, so you see a number like $490 billion.
Okay.
That's apparently what we all spend at the box office every year.
Wow. Almost half a trillion.
Right. And you think, that's a lot of money for, well, for stories, things that aren't even, tangible.
It really says something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About how much we just need narrative. It's fundamental.
Yeah, it's like this deep human hunger to make sense of things, to connect.
Exactly. And even if the stories are totally fictional, we're still using them to understand the world and ourselves.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're looking at Donald Miller's How to Tell a Story. We're going to pull out the core ideas about what makes a story, well, work.
What makes it grab you?
Yeah. So whether you're trying to communicate better, maybe at work, or just understand why certain movies or books stick with you, this should be useful.
Or even just dealing with all the media coming at you constantly.
Right. The main idea we're exploring is that great stories aren't just random. They actually follow like recognizable patterns.
Yet Miller's whole point is there's a structure underneath. It's not accidental. When a story resonates, you can kind of see the blueprint.
Okay, so let's get right into it. Why do stories matter so much? Miller calls story a sense-making device. What does he mean by that exactly?
Well, think about real life. It's often messy, confusing, kind of random, right?
Definitely.
A good story, though, it gives you clarity. You know who the character is, what they want, what's stopping them. It's all laid out.
Ah, so it's that clarity compared to the clutter of everyday life.
Precisely. Our
Yeah.
brains seem to just, gravitate towards that order. It feels satisfying.
Makes sense. I think you mentioned a study too, something about brain activity, Princeton.
Oh, yeah. Yuri Hassan's work. It's fascinating stuff. They monitored people's brains watching different things.
What did they find?
So when people watched something pretty passive, like I think it was a Sunday morning concert,
Okay.
only about 5% of the relevant parts of their brain, the cortex, lit up significantly.
5%. Not much.
But then they show them a Hitchcock clip. Bang! You're dead. Intense narrative. Suspense.
Right.
And suddenly, 65% of the cortex showed major activity. Attention, emotion, processing. The whole works.
Wow. That's a huge difference. So it's not just watching, it's like our brains are fully engaged with the story.
Totally. It shows how much more our minds hook into a narrative structure compared to just, well, random events.
And Miller says it's more than just being entertained, right? He talks about a clicking experience.
Yeah, that aha moment. When a story helps you understand something new or see a connection you didn't see before, it clicks.
And that helps build connection.
Definitely. You share that aha moment through the story. It creates a bond, a kind of shared understanding, even with fictional characters or situations.
And this isn't just like epic movies or novels. You mentioned marketing, Harvard Business Review, Super Bowl ads.
Oh, absolutely. It applies everywhere. Keith Quisenberry studied Super Bowl commercials for years. The ads that told the clearest story were way more likely to go viral. Think about those Budweiser ads, the ones with the puppy and the horse.
Yeah, I remember those. They were like mini movies.
Exactly. Short, emotional stories. They consistently beat ads that just relied on, humor or celebrities or whatever. He basically said a great ad is a story.
So even a 30-second spot needs that structure. That's quite telling. But Miller also brings up the double-edged sword nature of stories. They're powerful tools.
Hugely powerful, which means they could be used for good teaching, building empathy, inspiring people.
But also for bad.
Yeah. He points out, and it's a sobering thought, that many dictators have been incredibly skilled storytellers, using narrative to manipulate, to control.
And Robert McKee, another big name in story theory, he thinks stories actually shape our morals, calibrate our moral compass.
Yeah, that's McKee's view, that through stories we learn what's valued, what's right, what's wrong, what's worth fighting for. It's how societies kind of transmit values.
So understanding story isn't just about telling them, it's about understanding how we even decide what's important.
Pretty much. It shapes how we see the world and our place in it.
Okay, so we get why they're so powerful. Let's get into the how. Miller says good stories aren't random, they have the structure. He uses a music analogy.
He does, and it's a really good one. Think about just random noise like traffic or dropping a pan. It's just sound waves, right? Chaos.
Right. Annoying chaos, usually.
But music takes those same sound waves and organizes them. Scales, rhythm, harmony. There's a form. That structure is what turns noise into something meaningful, something that affects us emotionally.
Okay, I see where this is going. So a story is like music compared to just a random list of events.
Exactly. A random sequence of things happening isn't really a story in the sense that grabs us. It needs that underlying pattern, that structure, to make sense and engage us.
So you need the scales and harmony of storytelling.
Yeah. And you can be super creative within that structure, obviously. But if you ignore the fundamentals, it often just feels off, confusing, boring even. Miller really hammers home that clarity of structure is often more important than, say, flashy action scenes.
Okay, so what is this fundamental structure? He has that 7-step plot thing. Can you lay that out?
Sure. It sounds almost too simple, but he boils it down to this. A character has a problem.
Okay, character problem.
Then meets a guide.
A guide.
Who gives them a plan and calls them to action.
Got it. Guide, plan, call to action.
That action either results in a comedy or tragedy.
Comedy or tragedy, meaning happy ending or sad ending, basically.
Essentially, yeah. Success or failure. And he argues that this simple framework, you see it everywhere. Ancient myths, blockbuster movies, you name it.
He used Star Wars as an example, didn't he? How does that fit?
Perfectly. Luke is the character, his problem. Wants to fight the Empire, figure out this whole Jedi thing. He meets guides, plural, really, Obi-Wan and then Yoda. They give him a plan. Learn the Force, trust yourself. They call him to action. Confront Vader, help the rebellion.
Right. The action is joining the fight, training.
And the comedy, the success, is blowing up the Death Star. Save the day.
Clear pattern. What about the Hunger Games? Does that fit too?
Yep. Katniss is the character. Problem.
Yep.
Survive the deadly games. Guide. Haymitch.
Right. The cynical mentor.
Exactly. His plan. Get sponsors. Play the game smartly. Call to action. Volunteering. Then actually fighting in the arena.
And the comedy is her survival, sparking hope.
Precisely. It's survival against the odds, which is the positive resolution in that context.
It's pretty powerful how different stories fit that same mold. Miller also suggests we can use this for, like, our own lives, using 7 questions.
Yeah, it's a great self-reflection tool. Asking yourself about a past experience. Who were you then? What did you really want? What was the big obstacle, the problem? Who helped you? Like, who was your guide? What was the plan or the advice they gave? What did you actually do the action? What was scary about it? What could you have lost?
Potential tragedy.
Right. And then what was the outcome? The success? The happy ending? Or did it not work out?
He used a personal story, too, about asking a girl out.
Yeah. The girl across the hall, it's a simple, relatable example. He's the character wanting something. Date the girl. Problem. She's not interested. Guide. Her roommate, who suggests a plan. Take her to a soccer game. Action. Buying jerseys. Actually asking her. Potential tragedy.
Yeah.
Rejection. Comedy.
Yeah.
She says yes. They start dating.
See, it works even for everyday stuff. It makes it less abstract.
Totally. It shows how common this narrative arc is in just living.
Okay, let's dig into these 7 steps a bit more. First, a character. The hero. What's key here?
Well, number 1, they got to do something. They have to take action, make choices. They drive the story.
Can't be passive.
Right. And usually, for the story to feel meaningful, they need to change somehow. That's the character arc. They learn something, grow, overcome a flaw. Think Frodo, Rudy, Luke, even Bridget Jones. They all act and they all transform.
Okay, and this character has a problem. Miller breaks this down into, like, 3 levels. External, internal, philosophical.
Yeah, and this is important. The external problem is the obvious thing. Destroy the ring, make the team, beat the Empire, find love.
That's the plot, basically.
Yeah, right. But the internal problem is often what really hooks us emotionally. It's the character's inner struggle. Frodo fighting the ring's temptation, his own fear. Rudy battling his self-doubt. Luke facing his fear, his destiny. Bridget wrestling with self-worth.
So we connect with that internal struggle.
Exactly. That's what makes them relatable, human. And the philosophical level is the bigger theme. Good versus evil, justice, freedom versus tyranny, finding meaning. It adds depth. Like in Star Wars, the external is the Empire. Internal is Luke's doubt. Philosophical is freedom versus tyranny.
Got it. You need that internal conflict for us to really care. Okay, next. Meets a guide who understands their fear. What's the guide's job?
The guide isn't the hero. They're often wiser, steadier. Their main role is to show empathy. I get it. This is hard. I understand your fear. And then, crucially, to offer a way forward.
So they provide reassurance and direction.
Exactly. They give the hero confidence and a path. Think Gandalf, Yoda, Haymitch, even Bridget Jones's friends. They understand and they help.
And they help by giving them a plan. How does the plan function in the story?
The plan is the how. It turns a big, scary goal into something actionable. Could be a complex strategy or a simple piece of advice, like a paradigm shift.
Like, use the Force, Luke.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or Gandalf saying, you must take the ring to Mordor. Or Rudy's janitor giving him encouragement and practical help. Or Bridget's friends giving dating advice. It breaks through the hero's confusion, gives them confidence.
Okay, makes sense. Then comes the call to action. This sounds like a crucial moment.
It really is. It's the point of no return, often. The hero has the plan, they have the guide's support. Now they have to choose. Do they commit? Do they step up?
Step out of their comfort zone.
Right. It's often scary. Will Frodo accept the quest? Will Rudy actually try out? Will Luke turn off his targeting computer? Will Bridget put herself out there? They have to overcome their fear and act.
And that action leads to the ending. Comedy or tragedy. And again, comedy doesn't just mean funny.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
In story terms, comedy is just success. The hero achieves the goal, Middle-earth is saved, Rudy plays, the good guys win, Bridget finds happiness.
And tragedy is failure.
Yep. The negative outcome. The hero fails, maybe dies, the world falls apart, Sauron wins, Rudy gives up, the Empire crushes the rebellion, Bridget ends up alone. Miller says it's vital the audience understands what's at stake, what the potential tragedy is, even if it doesn't happen. That's what creates suspense.
And underlying all this is that key rule. A story must be clear. Cut anything that doesn't fit this structure.
Pretty much. He argues that if a scene doesn't advance the character's journey along these 7 steps, defining the problem, meeting the guide, getting the plan, showing the action, raising the stakes, then it's probably just noise. It risks confusing or boring the audience. Learn the form first, then you can improvise. Clarity is king.
Okay, we've got the structure down. Now, how do we actually use this? How does understanding this help us connect better? Miller gives some practical applications.
Yeah, he really stresses that story is the ultimate connection tool. And you can apply this structure in lots of ways. Writing a book, giving a speech, even just introducing yourself.
Let's take writing a book. He says you can repeat the structure within chapters, like mini-stories.
Exactly. Think of subplots. Each chapter or sequence of chapters can have its own mini arc following these 7 steps, tackling a smaller problem that feeds into the bigger story. It keeps the reader engaged and builds complexity without becoming a mess.
Interesting. Okay, what about giving a speech? He suggests starting with stories, not facts.
Yeah, kind of flipping the usual script. Instead of point A, then data, then point B, then data. He says start each point with a story that illustrates it. Use the 7 steps. Make it relatable.
Hook them with the narrative first.
Right. Get them emotionally invested, make the point memorable. Then you can add a brief bit of analysis or data. The story lets the audience connect the dots themselves and apply it to their own lives, which is way more powerful than just telling them facts.
That makes a lot of sense. And even for something simple like introducing yourself, tell a story instead of just giving your job title. He used his own story.
Yeah, the story brand origin story. Instead of, hi, I'm Don Miller, I run a branding company, he tells the story of having his conference company, feeling frustrated, having that aha moment on the plane about clear messaging.
Right, realizing brands weren't communicating simply.
Then developing the framework and helping huge companies like Pantene and Chick-fil-A. It's way more engaging. It shows what he does and why it matters rather than just stating it.
And that Chick-fil-A example is great too, getting their staff to tell their own stories linked to the brand.
Yeah, empowering everyone to be a storyteller. It builds connection internally and externally.
Finally, he talks about using story structure for, like, personal understanding, making sense of our own lives.
Yeah, because stories are fundamentally about change, about transformation. So looking at your own life through this lens, who was I? What problem did I face? Who helped me? What plan did I follow? What action did I take? What were the risks? What was the outcome? It can help you understand your own growth.
See the arc in your own experiences.
Exactly. Miller says when he starts a memoir, he asks, what in the world happened to me? And then uses these 7 elements to figure it out, to find the narrative thread in his own past. It brings clarity to personal history.
So really, the big takeaway is that understanding this structure isn't just for writers or marketers. It gives everyone a tool for clarity and communication, connection, and even self-understanding.
Absolutely. It's a framework for making sense of experience, both shared and personal.
Miller ends with that Robert McKee quote about needing courage to tell meaningful stories, urging us to write boldly. That feels like it goes beyond just writing books, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. It's about communicating authentically, connecting genuinely, maybe even living more intentionally, crafting the narrative of your work, your life, with clarity and purpose.
He does mention those workshops, too, for people who want to go deeper, the life plan and brand script workshops on the StoryBrand website. Sounds like practical next steps.
Yeah, these seem designed to help you actually apply these ideas directly to your life or your business. Could be really useful.
So it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? Now that you kind of see the code, the underlying patterns, and the stories all around you, how does that change how you look at things? How might you start shaping the stories you tell, and maybe even the story you're living? Definitely something to mull over.